Amen.
Amen.
So I've shared it at a couple meetings this week. We are officially Achrei HaHagim. We have finished our holiday season and we are restarting the Torah with Breshit this week. And I was thinking back about our Simchat Torah celebration where we did some Jewish trivia, and I realized I really like Jewish trivia. And most importantly, I really love it when the right answer is a little surprising. When people think they know the answer, but actually it's something else. I don't know why. I think that's fun. For example, who was the first woman? Or the next question, who was the first woman rabbi? Hazan, should I give you a chance to answer?
Yeah. Well, I thought I could answer the first woman rabbi, but it's now I'm doubting myself tremendously. I mean, well, see now I was gonna say Sally Presant, but she's the first Reform rabbi.
That's right. Most people say Sally Priesthand, but that's not actually the correct answer.
Well, now I feel so much better about myself.
That's okay. I'm about to explain that that's what most people would have said. What about the first
Okay.
woman in general? That one
What
is a little
I I
easier.
I was gonna say Eve.
And not Eve, there was another that came first.
Oh, wait. I
That's
think
okay.
I.
I'm about to explain it now. I'm
Okay.
glad you think you got it. Do you want to shout out the answer?
Can I just say maybe the Shekhinah?
Oh, that's a good guess to say God in God's feminine was there, but no, I'm talking about actual human woman. So let me start at the beginning. Midrash declares that at the beginning of time, when the Holy Blessed One created the world, God created the first man, and when God saw that this man was alone, God immediately created a woman from the earth like him, and God called her Lilith, and God brought her to Adam. Immediately, the two of them began a quarrel. He said, "You will lay on the bottom." And she said, "You will lay on the bottom, since we are both equals. We were both made from the earth." They would not allow each other to be heard. Once Lilith saw this, she uttered the special name of God, flew off into the air, and escaped. The rabbinic story comes from a medieval collection called the Alphabet of Ben Sira. And for the next 1200 years, this version of the story gained popularity, and Lilith entered the popular imagination as a demon who endangered babies. We find it in everything from religious spiritual texts, such as the Zohar, to works of popular fiction, such as The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. But the Midrash begs the question, why did the rabbis create this story? Why did we need a story about a woman, a first wife, before Eve? The answer is that ancient and medieval scholars noticed, like many modern critical scholars do, that there are two very different creation stories in Genesis. In chapter 1, God creates the Adam, the human person, in God's image, creating both male and female. We're told God created them. This verse suggests that male and female were created equally in the image of God. But in chapter 2, we read the story of Adam, man, created individually and alone, and Eve being created out of Adam's side as a subservient partner. In the Lilith story, women who seek to access their equality are seen as dangerous. And that is a lesson that many religious traditions have taught for centuries. It's only in recent decades that the figure of Lilith, originally guilty only of asserting her equality to Adam, has been reclaimed and redeemed as a feminist symbol and icon. Well, we hope today that the suggestion that the two of us are equal since we are both from the same earth no longer seems quite so scandalous. The truth is, one can only hope. And as we reread our creation story this Shabbat and wonder who Lilith really was, we also take a moment to remember another remarkable woman whose story and whose existence, her identity of being the first, often goes untold. On Yad Vashem's website, we may learn about her as we read that for many years, history's first female rabbi was thought to be American Sally Priesand, who was ordained in 1972, but this is not the case. There was a woman who came before her, who with great determination and tenacity broke through conventions and prejudice to pursue her religious calling. In 1935, in Berlin, Regina Jonas became the first ordained woman rabbi in history. And as such, she offered not only spiritual guidance, but compassionate support, counseling, and hope to ease the suffering of the persecuted and desperate Jews of Nazi Germany and later of the Theresienstadt ghetto. In October 1944, Rabbi Regina Jonas was deported to Auschwitz-Birkenau and murdered. And yet, until her files were found in the early 1990s in an obscure archive in East Berlin, she was almost completely forgotten by history. Rabbiner, as she was called, Rabbiner Regina Jonas, was selflessly dedicated to easing the suffering of her afflicted people, giving them light in their darkest hour, and deserves to be remembered and honored. As part of her rabbinic studies in 1930, she presented her rabbinic thesis, an 88-page document titled, "Can a Woman Be a Rabbi According to Halachic Sources?" Of course, the answer is yes. But from this, we learn that Rabbi Jonas believed that rabbinical rejections of women's roles were a reflection of the times in which they were written and not actually based on halachic sources. Maybe Lilith would have gotten a better rap if she was written about in modern times than in medieval times. Rabbi Jonas wrote, "The wheel of time turns, moving our world of Jewish thought, and with the general development of humanity and our world, attitude towards the woman has also developed and changed." And not only did she prove her beliefs academically with this and many other scholarly pieces, but also in practical rabbinics. She rose to the horrific occasion and served in the Jewish community as a thoughtful, intellectual, and caring rabbi during our community's most difficult times. In Theresienstadt ghetto, we know that working alongside Viktor Frankl, Jonas would greet all the shocked and traumatized deportees arriving in the ghetto straight from the trains. Author Liz Ellsby explains that these were disoriented people who had been ripped away from any semblance of normalcy still remaining to them and thrust into a terrifying new reality of overcrowding, disease, and despair. And Rabbi Jonas would offer them guidance and comfort, explaining the harsh realities awaiting them, but assuring them that she would be there to offer her assistance to smooth the way. Along with this incredible pastoral work, we also know that she spent time in the ghetto offering learning opportunities. A flyer from the Theresienstadt archives survives entitled "Lectures by the Only Female Rabbi, Regina Jonas." It lists 24 lectures she gave in the ghetto, ranging from the history of Jewish women, Talmudic topics, biblical themes, pastoral issues, and introductions to Jewish belief, ethics, and holidays. A lonely excerpt remains from a lecture she gave in which she taught, "Our work in Theresienstadt, serious and full of trials as it is, also serves this end, to be God's servants, and as much to move from earthly spheres to eternal ones. May all our work be a blessing for Israel's future and the future of humanity. Upright Jewish men and brave noble women were always the sustainers of our people. May we be found worthy by God to be numbered in the circle of these women and men, knowing the reward of a mitzvah is the recognition of the great deed by God." A remarkable woman and rabbi in 1944, as I said, Rabbi Regina Jonas was deported to Auschwitz, arriving on Shabbat Breshit, at which point there is no more record of her life. The assumption is that she was murdered that day that she arrived at Auschwitz, and thus it is on Shabbat Breshit, this Shabbat, that we mark her yahrzeit and retell her story. So this Shabbat, as we read the story of the world's creation and we contemplate the meaning of our existence, we are reminded both by Lilith and by Rabbi Regina Jonas that not only are women equal to men and equally capable of serving in important leadership positions. But we're also reminded that for everything we know about Jewish history, there's also probably something we don't yet know that's worth discovering. And we should seek this knowledge not simply because we want to get the Jewish trivia question right, but because as the wheel of time turns, we may reread and relearn Jewish text and history with new eyes and gain new insights, allowing our tradition to develop and change for the better. Shabbat Shalom.